Very good afternoon to all. Welcome to our Tally CA Connect. Today's topic of discussion is the need of the hour, that is understanding the e-invoicing provisions and its implications. Our expert for today is CA Vinodh Kothari. I'm sure Vinodh sir needs no introduction as he's a regular speaker at all the CA forums. I would just add 2-3 lines on his behalf that he's a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and has a rich blend of experience in practice for more than 12 years. He's an expert in the field of indirect taxes. He is also a visiting faculty at SIRC of the ICI Department of and National Academy of Custom, Excise and Narcotics, and also Auditor General Office. He is a trainer of GST by ICI and has trained over 15,000 CAs and professionals on GST, Tally, Excel, and Google Suite. We are proud that CA Vinodh Kothari is a Tally evangelist and has taken out time from his very busy schedule to do this event for us. Thank you, Vinodh sir.
Thank you.
And before we begin, just a note to the audience. So as I begin the topic, please do write your questions in Q&A and your comments in chat box so that we can track your queries and answer them. And instead of raising the hands, please try and write. All the raised hands questions will be taken at the end of the session so that we do not disrupt the source. Thank you all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Komal, for your introduction. A very warm good evening to all the members who are participating in this webinar. Very happy to see you all in a weekday to learn more. This means that knowledge is always something which we should be hungry for. Firstly, I would like to thank Tally for giving me this opportunity for taking this session on e-invoice. This session involves two parts. One is the introduction to e-invoice with certain statutory part and the practical approach of implementing e-invoice in Tally. Today, EI and AI, these two are moving fast. EI is e-invoice, AI is artificial intelligence. Technology is moving at such a speed phase that so many things are being updated within a click of a second. Recently, GST department has issued a notification that with effect from 1st October 2022, e-invoice will be applicable for those whose aggregate turnover is more than 10 crores. So this being the case, maybe in April 2023, we can see that even the turnover may be reduced to 5 crores or furthermore, we have to wait and watch. So it is very, very important for every businessman, every chartered accountant or every accountant to get updated on the e-invoice. One is what e-invoice is, second is how to implement it and use it in the software. Just a second, I'll share the screen. Fine. So before starting the session, we'll just understand certain data. So already I informed you that 2 parts. One is about e-invoice statutory provision and practical approach, which we are going to see. Some data we need to understand. This is the recent data which I have taken from yesterday till date. Almost 200 crore of e-invoice has been generated. And the number of registered person for e-invoicing, registered suppliers for e-invoicing is around 3 lakhs. And the e-invoice generated only in the month of July is around 13 crores. So roughly, if you see, almost every second 150 e-invoice are generated. Why this data? From 1st October, this data will even increase. The number of registered suppliers will also increase. So you need to know that everything today is data driven. And why e-invoicing is done? So that it becomes easy both for the supplier and the recipient to update the data of the purchases and sales in the electronic format, and this in turn will help them to claim the ITC and various other benefits are there. So this data is a huge data. This is only for 22 months. So you should know that apart from this, there are almost 1.38 crores of registered GST dealers and around 92 crores of returns have been filed. So now I'm not going to take so much of everything. But why I am taking this data is, when you are dealing with the system, when you are dealing with the e-invoice, you have to be aware that there is a huge data which is going in the background. So always avoid taking the work to the last minute. Be little prepared, because since the data is huge, even the system has been developed to very good extent to ensure that there is no lags or the user doesn't face any trouble. So you have to ensure that you have to be pre-prepared. Don't take any work to the last moment, because what work you are doing day to day, it may be feeling for you that you are only generating one e-invoice every second. Almost around 150 e-invoice are generated in the portal, and you have to ensure that you do it properly and correctly. So first, why e-invoicing? The main reason for e-invoicing today, what is the biggest challenge which we are facing? As a GST registered person, today GSTR 2B is giving us a trouble. What is 2B? You can claim input tax credit only when your supplier files his return on time. So this is creating a challenge. To avoid these challenges, B2B communication, to improve the B2B communication, this e-invoice is being introduced, so that on a real-time basis, the data is available in your portal. See, in future, see today, what do you mean by accountant? What is the accountant data entry work? He will pass the sale entry, he will pass the purchase entry, he will pass the bank account, he will pass the receipts, payment, and all the other adjustment entry. In future, once this e-invoice portal become more robust, your purchase entry will go. All your B2B invoices where e-invoice you are getting, software will automatically pick up from your e-invoice portal and update it and pass your purchase entry. Your bank entry, you link your account, you link your tally data, maybe in future it will come, you link your bank statement to the bank portal. Automatically it will download, pass the entry, whatever suspense entries are there, it will keep it in suspense, and then automatically using artificial intelligence, the data will be passed. So today cash entries are very minimal except of some category of business. So using this in future, accountant work will be reduced only to petty cash work and the adjustment entry work in the year end. And next purpose is simplifying exchange of documents between the supplier and recipient. Another big challenge which dealers are facing is that they are not getting the physical copies of invoice. So once e-invoice comes into picture, the physical copy is not required. If you have the IRN number, QR code, and the online invoice copy, that itself is more than enough. The original copy is not required. GST reporting becomes more easier. See, in the past, when GST came into picture, government gave lot of free hand. You do whatever you want. You file anything. 3B, you fill, okay, you want to fill input data, input, you fill output data, output, whatever amount you put, it will accept it, and then the return is accepted. Till 2-3 years, they are not bothered to check the input with the 2A or compare whether input is genuine or not genuine. But nowadays, what happens? Whenever you go and fill your 3B, is it pre-filled or you fill it? Earlier, you were giving the data, then system used to check the data and give you some notices or replies. Notices they used to send. But today, what is happening? Your GSTR1 is pre-filled. Why? Because of this e-invoice and e-way bill. Except for the B2C, which you have to put the values manually. Your 3B data is pre-filled. How? Because of this e-invoice, e-way bill, and the GSTR1. And it takes the input tax value from the 2B also. So now everything is pre-filled. What is your work? Your work is to check whether the data is correct or not. To minimize the time, to minimize the errors, you have to ensure that your accounting data is maintained correctly. That happens only when you maintain your accounts correctly using some proper good software like Tally. So which helps you to maintain the accounts in a proper manner, which is even linked to the e-invoice and e-way bill portal and saves a lot of time. What is the meaning of this e-invoice? See, normal Many people are thinking that e-invoice means I have to go to the portal and generate the e-invoice. No. E-invoice does not mean you have to generate the e-invoice in the portal. You are only generating a reference number for your invoice. You generate your own invoice. In the invoice, you have certain data. What is the data you are having? You have your supplier name, you have the supplier address, you have the GST number of the supplier, then the recipient name, recipient address, invoice number, invoice date, HSN code, the product, the rate, the commodity, the rate, value, GST, all these data are there. So e-invoicing is exchange of these invoice data, exchange of these invoice data in a structured manner, between the supplier and the buyer using a integrated electronic format. So you are only transferring the invoice data to the invoice portal, which is called as the E-Invoice portal, where you upload it and you get back the invoice reference number. So this reporting is done for only specified documents and not all the documents. Now, if you see in GST, there are various documents. One, you have your tax invoice. Next, you have your bill of supply. Then you have your credit note. You have your debit note, delivery challan. Lot of data is there. Lot of documents are there. Now, e-invoice is only for 3 documents. One is your tax invoice, credit note, and debit note. In detail, we'll see in the further slide. And where you have to notify, where you have to upload, you have to upload in the government notified website. Now, if you see recently, at present, only one website is being used, einvoice1.gst.gov.in. So many people are having a fear that when more number of people are going to register, then the system will get stuck and the businessman will be facing with lot of trouble. I would like to inform that there are almost 12 to 15 websites notified: E-Invoice 1, E-Invoice 2, E-Invoice 3. So these kinds of websites are already being notified. In the GST notification, only one is in use. As and when the data volume increases, they will say E-Invoice 1 for Maharashtra, E-Invoice 2 for Gujarat, E-Invoice 4 for Tamil Nadu. So this way they will split the website and give it to the state-wise portal. And again, e-invoicing does not mean generation of invoice by government portal. Your invoice, your data, your method, your computer, only upload the data, get back the reference number. And then for whom it is applicable. So as on date, it is applicable for those dealers whose aggregate turnover in a financial year. Please note that this is very important part where many of them get confused. It is whose aggregate turnover in a financial year exceeds 20 crore as on date. But with effect from 1st October 2022, it is 10 crores. Now, what is this in a financial year? What is this aggregate turnover? These two things are very important for you to understand. Now, first, in a financial year means, when did GST come into picture? It is in financial year 17-18, and it started from 1st July 2017. So financial year 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, 21-22, in any of the one financial year, preceding financial year, if the aggregate turnover exceeds 20 crore as on date, 10 crore from 1st October, then you become liable to for your applicability of e-invoice. Now, what is this aggregate turnover? Now, this is PAN-based turnover, all India PAN-based turnover. Aggregate turnover means what? If you see the definition of aggregate turnover in GST, it means your taxable turnover, that is those goods and services on which GST is applicable, your export turnover, your exempted turnover, your non-GST turnover also, non-GST supply also. So you have to be careful that your aggregate turnover will include the non-GST turnover, non-GST supply also. Now coming to exempted turnover. Exempted turnover definition means what? Exempted turnover includes your exempted supply, your nil rated supply, and the non-GST supply. So this aggregate turnover in nutshell, if you want to see, It is your credit side of your trading and profit and loss account. Everything in your credit side of your trading and profit and loss account, which is taxable, which is exempted, everything will be included in your aggregate turnover. See, many of them don't show this interest received on fixed deposit, interest received on loans and advances. This normally comes to either the personal account of the proprietor, or it is shown in the P&L account, not in the trading account. Now, for your information, interest income is an exempted income, and normally many of them don't show this exempted income in the GSTR 3B. Why? Because we think it is not part of GST. Now be careful in those cases. Whenever you are calculating this turnover, this has to include the interest income, is my opinion, because of the definition of aggregate turnover, and there is no specific exemption given for this interest part. Next, what are the exempted categories? Now there are certain exempted sectors for whom this is not applicable. One is the SEZ unit. Say I am having one domestic unit, I am having an SEZ unit. So SEZ unit, for the SEZ unit, E-Invoice is not applicable. Or if I am having only SEZ unit, or I am a SEZ developer, then it is not applicable. Insurance company, not applicable. Banking company, including NBFC, not applicable. GTA, now that means the goods transport agency, the service provider of GTA, for him E-Invoice is not applicable. Passenger transport services, E-Invoice not applicable. Multiplex cinema like PVR, we go, we watch movie. Admission, not applicable. Then government department, local authorities, for these categories E-Invoices not applicable. So what are the supplies covers? Basically, it is GST invoice, that means the tax invoice. For the information, what do you mean by tax invoice? Means invoice where taxable goods and services are provided. You generate an invoice called as a tax invoice. So only that invoice, if you are supplying exempted goods, then it is called as a bill of supply. Bill of supply need not be updated, but the tax invoice need to be updated. Then the credit note and debit note. Now, what do you mean by credit note? Who will issue the credit note? Who will issue the debit note? This also, some of them are facing a confusion. Debit note, credit note issued by whom? By the supplier. So as per GST provision, the credit note or debit note issued by the supplier is a valid GST debit note or credit note. And it is only for B2B supplies, not for B2C supplies. So E-Invoice should be generated only for B2B supplies and not for the B2C supplies, and including export supplies, including the export supplies. So applicable from the various deadlines, you see, starting from 1st October 2000, and as on date from 1st October 22, the turnover is reduced to 10 crores. So any of the one financial year. So what is the process to create a E-Invoice? Now the process to create E-Invoice is very simple. You generate an invoice as per your existing method. If you are using Tally, well and good. No sir, I'm not using Tally, I'm using Excel. Even from Excel you can generate, but little complication will be there. You should use the utility and then use it. Some other software, it depends upon the software. So use such a software which helps you to automatically link to the GST portal and generate the E-Invoice like we have in E-Way Bill. So you generate your E-Invoice as per your existing method or existing software. Now the data of the invoice you have to report in the invoice registration portal. Now what do you mean by this invoice registration portal? Invoice registration portal is einvoice1.gst.gov.in. This is where you need to first register yourself, and then only you can upload the data. See, whatever invoice data you are uploading, that data should be in a specific format. This is what one requirement is there. In detail, I will not go into that. Like say, for example, the invoice number should be maximum 16 digit. Date should be in this format. The supplier name should be maximum this many characters. The address should be maximum this many characters. So these kind of field restrictions are there. So you have to take care of your field restriction in case you are uploading the data and it is getting rejected. Just check what is the reason. Maybe the field restriction may be giving a trouble. So you generate an invoice, create a login in the invoice registration portal, upload the data. Once you upload the data, within few seconds, your invoice data will be validated, and then the system will give back to the invoice registration portal, will give you back with a 64-digit IRN number, 64-digit IRN number along with the QR code. So it will generate a IRN number with a digitally signed QR code, and you have to issue the invoice to the recipient with the QR code. See, only invoice for delivery challan, you need not issue E-Invoice. Only for invoice delivery challan is going, e-way bill may be required, but E-Invoice is not required. And once for you this is applicable, then all your tax invoice, B2B supplies, credit note, debit note, mandatory, it should be with the valid IRN and a QR code. If you don't generate a valid IRN and QR code, that means that invoice is invalid. Sir, I generate the invoice. I did not put it in the portal, E-Invoice Portal, but I'm putting in a GSTR1. That is also wrong. The benefit of claiming the ITC will be rejected for your recipient. So once it is applicable, you have to ensure that you generate 100% B2B invoices, debit note, credit note with IRN. So what is this all about, this IRN? So technical aspect, if you see, IRN is of 64 digits. So manually you cannot type. You have to use a system. So either Excel you use or Tally software you use, but without a system and a software, it will be difficult. So still now we have not changed to any software which is helping you to generate E-Invoice automatically. Then I would suggest that please buy that software, invest some money in that software. Otherwise, your life will be terrible, because all the process, when you do it, logging it in the system and then doing it, it is little slower than doing it with the system. Like say, for example, if you do it in Tally, hardly 5 to 10 seconds, it will submit the data, get back you with the IRN. And same thing if you do without a software, generating JSON file and then uploading and then getting, then updating in the software, then your time is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Your time will be wasted. Today, time is precious. Time is money, right? So 64 digit, and this IRN will be unique for each year. That is, every year the 64 digit will be unique for you, and this will be generated only for tax invoice, debit or credit note. This will contain the details of the GSTN, financial year, date, and the document number. And you have to ensure that whenever you are uploading the data, the invoice number or the document number should not start with slash, hyphen, or zero. Slash, hyphen, or zero. And one more point of caution: never unnecessarily update the data without without a GSTN recipient, that is B2C supplies. The portal may block you for some period, then again you have to apply, and all those things will come. So always ensure that whenever you are uploading the data, you upload the data only for B2B supplies. So what are these tax invoices? So one is your B2B supplies, already I have explained. SEZ supplies with payment. Now, SEZ supplies means what? Your zero rated supply. If you are making a supply to an SEZ, so two options are there. You take an LUT, one with payment of tax, second without payment of tax. So in both the cases, E-Invoice should be generated. Next is export with payment of tax, export without payment of tax. So again, in both the case, you have to generate the E-Invoice. And even in deemed exports, you have to generate the E-Invoice. And I said that once you upload the data, you get the IRN number. Along with the IRN number, you get the QR code. In this QR code, 8 details will be available when you scan this QR code. 8 details are available when you scan this detail in the QR code. What are these details? 1, it will contain the GSTN of the supplier. 2, it will contain the GSTN of the customer. 3, it will contain the invoice number issued by the supplier. 4, it will contain the date of invoice. 5, invoice value, number of line items. 7 is HSN code of main items. 8 is IRN number. These are the 8 details which will be available in your IRN. So this is a sample e-invoice. So you can see that there is a QR code, and these are the details. That is the yellow color box contains the IRN number, acknowledgement number, and acknowledgement date. That means when you send the data to the invoice registration portal, it will send you back these 4 details. 1 is the QR code, 2nd is the IRN number, 3rd is the acknowledgement number, and the date and time. So these details, and this has to be affixed with your invoice. So your invoice software, now in Tally, automatically it will integrate and give you the printout. So other software, if you are using, then there also you have to ensure that this is done. You cannot give invoice separately, IRN number and QR code separately. No, it should be part of your invoice. Now we come to the method of implementation. So what are the methods of implementation? 1 is API method. API method is using a software like Tally. Tally is using the API method. You integrate. Tally is a GST Suvidha provider authorized by the GST department. So they are a GST Suvidha provider. So they can directly link the software to the E-Invoice registration portal. So for them, powers is given, provided you have to create a user ID and password, giving them the access, which we are going to see. Next method is file transfer method. So data is stored in a standalone folder and API are used. That is additional, some software is used. That means your accounts is a separate software. From that you generate a JSON file. Then you buy some another software which gives you only the e-invoice generation. This data you upload in that software and then upload in the portal and generate the e-invoice. Next method is bulk JSON and single JSON. There are utilities available where you can generate your invoice. From the invoice, the data is converted into JSON file. You log into the portal and then upload this JSON file, and then e-invoice can be generated. So these are the various methods of implementation of e-invoice. Now we come to the cancellation aspect. So before this, we can take 1 or 2 doubts, I think. Any doubt till now? In case builders, developer, stage wise payment and advances are received, how to e-invoice and how to enter the cancellation in such cases? Sir, if you are issuing invoice, if it is a B2B cases, see, in case of B2B only, you are going to generate e-invoice. And only if you are giving an invoice, see, stage-wise payment is one, but for every stage, are you giving the invoice? That is important. If for every stage you are giving an invoice, then you have to generate an e-invoice. You are giving only advance receipt voucher. Then in the final case, when you generate an invoice, at that time, you have to generate an e-invoice. And in case how to cancel, see, cancellation method, only one method is there. Cancellation method is you have to, which we are going to see. If within that limit you cancel, that is okay. But after that limit, if you want to cancel, then credit note only you have to issue, right? Invoice numbering after continue the same or change. Invoice numbering after continue the same. See, it is your choice. You can continue the same number, like say for example 30th September, your invoice is 374 and you want to continue from 375, choice is yours. If you want to continue with a new number, then you can even take the new number, choice is yours. See, as per the GST rules, you can have multiple series of invoice number. Only one thing is that it should be unique, right? So if you are renumbering, say for example that from April you have renumbered to invoice number 1, and till 30th September it has come to 374, and now again you are renumbering to 1. That is wrong, because 2 invoices with same number during a year cannot happen. You should create some serial number which differentiate between this one and that one, like EI001. So this way you can start a new number. Choice is yours, or you can continue with the invoice numbering, same numbering. I am into stone crusher business where daily dispatch is about 10 vehicles with each worth 30,000 only. Can I generate a bulk invoice for every vehicle? E-invoice is must. Now it depends upon how you generate the invoice. If you are generating invoice for each and every vehicle, then you have to, yes, generate for e-invoice using bulk utility. If you have a system there using offline utility, you can generate the invoices at one particular point of time, copy the data, take to the place where the internet connection is there, upload the data. So that can be done for each and every, yes, e-invoice should be generated for each and every vehicle if it is a different invoice. Say for example 10 vehicle, only one e-invoice is generated, then for 10 vehicle you need to generate the e-way bill, and hence value is 30,000. E-way bill also not required. I have wrongly enabled e-invoice for my client with turnover exceeding 20 crore. Turnover exceeding 20 crore, e-invoice is applicable. I did not understand your question. In case of raising export invoice, can we prepare e-invoice in foreign currency? Yes, that option is also available in Tally. I'm going to show you how you can generate that. You have to put the foreign value and then the Indian value. Both the value you have to provide as on the date of generating invoice. What is the currency value? That value you will provide. No. So do I have the freedom to create 100 vehicle invoice at the end of month? No. You have to generate day wise. See, e-invoice purpose itself is to be live. You cannot take it to 1 month and then generate in the month end. So that will not be correct. Time of supply provisions will be affected. Okay, we'll stop till this. We'll continue the question and answer session later on, so that some part of the continuity will be there, and you also don't feel bored that I'm taking a theory class. I know that it's a 3 p.m. time, which is little difficult post lunch. Then also, okay, fine. So we'll continue further. First, we'll complete this part. Now, coming to this part, cancellation. When you can cancel, see, now there is no choice of making mistake. You have to be very, very careful. You should have a proper check mechanism. In your business, if there's one person who is raising the invoice, you need to arrange another person who checks the invoice correctly. In case you make a mistake, you only have 24-hour time from the time you generated till next 24 hours time. You have to cancel a e-invoice. Be careful. But same way, if you see in e-way bill, you have 24-hour time, but that 24-hour time does not calculate from the time you generate. If you are taking a e-invoice now, say e-way bill now, then in e-way bill what happens is 24 hours will continue till next day night 12. But in e-invoice, again I'm telling you, it is 24 hours from the time, 24 hours from the time you generate the e-invoice. So be careful. Okay. So if you have made a mistake, then you have to ensure that you cancel it within 24 hours. If you have generated an e-invoice, along with the e-invoice, you have generated an e-way bill, right? So normally what happens, Tally gives you an option. You can generate e-invoice and e-way bill together. You generate the e-invoice, immediately e-way bill generated, you send the goods along with the invoice. If you have generated e-invoice, and for that you have generated e-way bill also, then first you have to ensure that you cancel the e-way bill, then only this can be cancelled. But if e-way bill is verified in between, then that cannot be cancelled, right? Say for example, you started the movement, 2 hours gone, somewhere in between the officer has verified and he has noted that this e-way bill is verified, then e-way bill cannot be cancelled. This e-invoice also cannot be cancelled. So be careful about the cancellation part, and be careful when there is a holiday. I have often seen in e-way bill that, sir, I have generated on Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 15th August. So 3 days holiday, we forgot to cancel it. The goods did not move. So be careful in the weekend, long weekend or long leave holidays when you generate the e-invoices. Don't generate it in the end moment without verification. Otherwise, it will be a trouble for you. Once you cancel a e-invoice, see, say invoice number 372. 372, you are uploading, generating the IRN. Okay. This invoice, you are generating the IRN. 372 invoice number. If you cancel the e-invoice, then this 372 number cannot be used again. Once again, the invoice number for which you have generated e-invoice, if you are canceling it, the same number cannot be used again. You have to use the next number only. So in Tally, there's an option: delete voucher, cancel voucher. You should never delete a sales voucher if you have generated an e-invoice. You can only cancel that. Alt X. Don't use Alt D. Be careful. And so Alt X, Alt D, there's a difference. Alt X means the voucher number is retained. Alt D means the voucher number changes. So you have to be careful. Now the question is, sir, I have generated e-invoice. 24 hours lapsed. What to do? I want to cancel. You don't have an option. That means the sale is confirmed. That means what? Sale is confirmed. Only one option you have, but that you have to justify. What is that option? Is issuing of the credit note to your recipient. This will be shown as if you have made a sale and then the credit note is passed. So it will be entered in his books. One is sale and then the credit note. So you have to be careful when system comes into place. Certain carefulness is required. We don't have a choice. You cannot amend a invoice. Again, only cancellation. No amendment possible. Already in GST, we have seen this. Only amendment available in the 3B, sorry, GSTR1. Otherwise, you don't have an amendment option of the return. Same way, e-way bill, no amendment. So what are the benefits? One, the data is standardized. See, for the department, it becomes more standardization. I will tell, for the department, it is more than the data. For the department, for the trader, if e-invoice is there, say I am a trader, I have maximum 95% e-invoice inward and outward 95 or 100% e-invoice only, then the department can prepare my trading account. So much data is available. They have the cost of my goods and the sale at the rate at which I sell. Every data is there. They can, using the FIFO method, using the software, they can even find out your closing stock value. So to that extent, the data is available. This data is again linked to the income tax department. Earlier, this was not like this. VAT department was separate, central excise department was separate, service tax department was separate. Only if income tax department asked the data, then it used to go. Now integration between GST and income tax is happening. AIS, TIS, lot of things, standardization is happening. Automation, yes, for the department, left, right, center, everywhere automation is there. Advantage to certain good extent, but certain places this automation is also creating trouble. Nowadays, many of you might have received some notice, ASMP 10, DRC. So a lot of notices have been received. So this trouble is also there. Automation, seamless reconciliation, yes, very good for reconciliation purpose. For ITC purpose, software automatically maps your data with the purchases and the 2B, and then your reconciliation happens. So earlier what happened, you have a purchase invoice, you don't type the invoice number exactly, like hyphen, slash, and then what happens, you face trouble in mapping the data with 2B using the formulas and the software. So this, because of this, at least reconciliation is done very good. ITC is the faster availability of ITC is there. Lesser compliance, I don't say lesser compliance, but faster compliance, that almost the data is pre-filled. So elimination of fake invoice. Over the last 5 years, a lot of fake invoice cases have been found out by the department, and hundreds and thousands of crores of tax leakage has been found out. So by e-invoice, at least these things will be reduced. Real-time availability of information for you. If I am a supplier or a recipient, I get to know the data, whether he has built the data correctly in and uploaded it correctly in the GST portal. Then the e-way bill and e-invoice is integrated, faster availability of ITC. These are the benefits. Certain misconception. So already certain things, the issue of invoice by the GST portal. No, you don't have to issue invoice, only generate the IRN. E-invoice applicable for all transaction, no, only B2B invoices, tax invoice and debit note, credit note, that to B2B. Billing software is must. I will tell that if you want to live peacefully and save a lot of time, yes, billing software is must. But without billing software also, you can do it. Increase in GST compliance. Now the data is updated. You upload the sales data, e-invoice data, automatically GSTR 1 is filled and even your 2B is filled. So compliances is being reduced, time consuming process. It depends upon the method you use. If you are using the offline method or using a non-integrated account software method, that is to upload the e-invoice, yes, it will be little time consuming. But if you use software like Tally, lot of time will be saved. Real-time availability of information. Yes, e-invoice is expensive. Expensive to the extent you buy Tally. If you want, if you don't have a software, maximum some 20,000 you have to spend. But this will save a lot of time. So this is the portal. Portal is einvoice1.gst.gov.in. As already I have said, some 10 to 15 portals have been notified, like GST invoice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reason being that in case, see, you can see when this notification was issued, the 10 or 12 portals, this was issued in the year 2020 itself. So at that point of time, the department or the GST department had in mind that they are going to reduce the limit. So 5 crores till 5 crores, yes, I am sure that this will happen. But less than 5 crores, we have to wait and watch. So if burden on this side becomes higher, then what will happen? Then the more number of portal will be open for the public, and state-wise they will allocate the portal. So this is just a screenshot of portal. So you can just go to the portal. This is the area where you do the registration first time. We'll see in the details in the coming part. Then once you register, you need to create a login, and then you log into the portal. So this search area is very, very important part for you to check. Now, many of them have a doubt whether you or your client, for them, e-invoice is applicable or not. Your client, normally everyone don't remember if they are in the border, say 9 crores, 10 crores border, they don't remember the exact thing in the last 5 years that the turnover is so much, or you call for the details and all. Don't do anything. Just go to the e-invoice status of the taxpayer. Go to the e-invoice portal, go to the e-invoice status of the taxpayer, type the GST number. It will tell you whether for this person e-invoice is enabled or not required based on the GST return file. Once again, I am telling you, don't take the data based on the GST return alone. See the financial statements, credit side, to check some exempted income has not been included in the e-invoice, that is the GSTR, then that will create a trouble for you. And whatever invoices you get, that is, we have seen the QR code or GSTR 64-digit IRN. If you want to verify those, you can see this verified signed invoice. So using this, you can verify your invoice, what you are getting. So this portal, some more new additions have been made in this. And then you have the tools for bulk generation. Say, sir, I'm not using software, I'm using some Excel. Then you can use those tools to generate the e-invoice. So once you provide the details in the portal, you can say verify. The detail will provide you these kind of verification that this e-invoice is generated. This is the IRN number. So all these details can be seen. And then you have your QR code. In the QR code, you have app. From the app or any scanner, you just scan, you get these 8 details. So this is certain basic details about the e-invoice. I've not gone much into the smaller parts of the statutory, but important aspects like your aggregate turnover is very, very important. That the 10 crores, when you have to see the turnover, so you have to be careful. We will take few questions and then continue to the practical aspects. For 17-18, whereas the GST turnover of the client was less than 20 crores. Now when I go to generate e-way bill, the alert message pops up to generate e-invoice. See, if you're going as on date, then it is telling you to register for the 10 crores, right? Now you have to check whether the turnover is 20 crores or not. Check the documents. You check for the 5 years whether 20 crores is more than. Accordingly, you take a call. So all the 5 years document you check. See, certain cases again I'll tell you, you will have a problem of this turnover based on this branch transfer, interstate branch transfer, which you are not considering. It is also a taxable turnover. So be careful about that. Is it required to generate e-invoice and e-way bill? Yes. If e-way bill is applicable, you have to generate. Now, it is not mandatory that both has to be generated at the same time. I may generate the e-invoice now, but I may generate the e-way bill tomorrow also, 2-3 days after also, giving the reference of this e-invoice. That is possible, right? So if e-way bill is applicable, yes, you have to generate at the same time. Yes, if you want to generate at the same time, yes, you can generate. If you want to generate at the different time, yes, that is also possible. Existing TallyPrime, can it be integrated with the E-Invoice Portal? If you are using a version more than latest version 2.21, that is above 1.1, then the data can be integrated with E-Invoice. It is not necessary that you have to change the data and create a new company. Your existing Tally data can be integrated with the E-Invoice in the portal directly. That method I'm going to show you. E-Invoice is not taken. How to declare? See, till now we don't know what is going to happen. You try to provide the detail now. I have seen certain cases that in case you have not generated e-invoice for few older dates, they are accepting the e-invoice, right? So some leverage is given, but I have not tried for the past dated entries. You can just try it, or at least now you create it and mention it. There may be a documentation lapse, there may be that part is there, but at least your recipient may not be denied the ITC. So at least that you can take care. E-invoice required to be generated if debit note is raised by the recipient. Okay. Is e-invoice required to be generated if debit note is raised by the recipient to the supplier on account of cash discount or goods return? Please clarify. See, again, I am telling, whenever it comes to debit note, credit note, I have seen many people confusing. They are not clear on what it is. Debit note, credit note, again, it is only what the supplier issues. When you will issue credit note, when there is a sales return, the supplier should issue credit note. When there is a tax amount which is charged higher, say you have to charge 12%, you have charged 18% wrongly, for that 6%, you can issue credit note. When you have charged higher value, you should charge invoice 15,000, but wrongly you have charged 20,000. For the 5,000 plus GST, you can issue a credit note. Or there is a rate difference, you issue a credit note. What is credit note? GST credit note issued by the supplier for these three purposes, and which contains GST. There are non-GST credit note also, non-GST debit note also. Now, in your case, you are telling that your recipient is giving debit note. No. If you are issuing a credit note, then only it has to be uploaded. Again, it should be a GST credit note. Now, for ad hoc discount, for cash discount, you cannot generate a credit note. For discount, separate rules are there in GST. So this, if I take, it will take a lot of time. So we'll keep it separately. So you can check in the discount part. What are the separate rules when you have to generate discount with GST, discount without GST, with credit note. So your recipient credit note, debit note should never consider as a part of e-invoice. Good afternoon, sir. I have wrongly enabled the invoice of my client with turnover exceeding 20 crores for 17-18, whereas the GST turnover of the client was less than 20 crores. Okay, now when I go to generate e-way bill, alert message is proper. Generate the invoice, generate voluntarily. See, you have to generate e-invoice only if it is applicable. If it is not applicable, don't generate. You should not generate. Because of some technical error, it has been accepted. So if you are sure that it has not crossed 20 crores as on date, then no need to generate, because I think 17-18 you are considering the VAT turnover and the GST turnover is my understanding. So if it is not applicable for sure, then don't generate it. Maybe from 1st October you can generate. For this, the department may ask you that why you have not generated at that point of time. You have to give a suitable answer with proper documentation and reply. If we upload invoice to Tally, will the HSN summary also be simultaneously be updated? Yes, it will be updated. My client is dealing in exempted, whether e-invoice. So only exempted e-invoice not required, only tax invoice. For bill of supply, e-invoice is not required. If you are dealing in exempted goods, then you issue bill of supply. So I'm issuing both taxable goods and exempted goods. Then you issue tax invoice come bill of supply. In that case, yes, e-invoice is required. But in the exempted goods, the tax value will not appear. But only exempted goods, it is a bill of supply, no need to generate. E-invoice comes with the part of the Tally. It is, you don't need to buy it separately, but only thing is that you need to ensure that your subscription is valid and you download the latest version. Once E-invoice generated, how can we hide the details of the rate and party during transaction? Those things cannot be hidden. It's a part of a mandatory detailed part of the invoice that cannot be hidden. See, aggregate turnover, again, this issue is little debatable. Certain places, for me, my understanding, it is the GST turnover which has to look, but certain people give different opinion. So we have to wait if any clarification is coming. So my understanding is they are telling any financial year. If you see the financial year wise, yes, 17-18 whole year comes. But if you see GST came into picture, so both the places, some confusion is there. So there is not a clear answer. So certain places we are also facing this trouble. Clarify about credit notes. So already I have explained about credit note. Credit note issued by supplier is only valid credit note where GST has an impact. Yes, supplier has to generate e-invoice for credit note where GST has an impact. Fine, we will stop this question and answer session here. Then we will continue later on. Fine. So till now we have seen the introduction part and some important statutory aspect part. Now we are going to see how to enable. We are going to see how to enable GST. How to enable this e-invoice in the GST. Practical approach. So these are the steps for whatever we are going to see here. First, I'm going to explain you the steps, and then we are going to go to the practical part, right? So first step is the setup in GST. So two part here. One, you have to do an external setup in the GST portal. Then you have to do a setup in the TallyPrime. Then after you do the setup, you pass your voucher entry and you will get an option to generate the e-invoice. Two options are there, either online or offline. Online means you pass enter, automatically your Tally will get connected to the GST portal and e-invoice will be generated. And offline means you generate the JSON file and then upload it separately. In certain cases, like say someone was saying that they are stone crushers, so their internet connection is not available. So what they can do is they can use the offline method. Then we will see what are the invoice cancellations options in Tally, how it can be cancelled both offline and online, and then certain reports which are available in the Tally. So now setup of GST outside Tally. So two setup I said, one in Tally, another outside Tally. So outside Tally, how you should set up is, first you go to the einvoice1.gst.gov.in. This is the portal you have to go, which we have seen. There you have to go and first you have to check whether for you e-invoice is applicable or not. If it is applicable, then you have to enable this e-invoice. Just because your turnover is 20 crores, a department knows automatically? No. You have to enable it by going to a particular area and then enable it, accept it as a e-invoice enablement. Then what you need to do, once you enable it, you create a portal login. That is for the purpose of login to the portal. First you enable the e-invoice, then you create a portal login. And if you have already created an e-label portal login, that can also be used here. But e-invoice enablement is must. Then add. Now this is very important step. If you want your tally to be integrated with the e-invoice on a real-time basis, then you have to add the tally as a GSP provider. GST Suvidha provider is the GSP. So for this, you have to going to log into the portal. There you will be having your API registration. In the API registration, you have the user credentials. In the user credentials, you have to create an API user. One OTP will be sent. Then you have to select tally as your GSP, and then you accept it, create a UPI user ID and password. This API, sorry, not UPI, nowadays UPI is very common, so I get this word. So API user ID and password you created, this password should be used for the purpose of integrating to the tally. So this is your E-Invoice portal. In the E-Invoice portal, you can see the registration part. In the registration part, you can see this E-Invoice enablement. Click on this E-Invoice enablement. If you are not enabled, if you are enabled, then you create a login. If you have created login, then proceed with the next step. So whichever steps you have done, that you can ignore and go to further next step. Provide your GSTN. So once you provide your GSTN, it will give the breakup details of the GSTN. Just check your details whether it is correct or not. Now, if you open today, it shows only 10 crores. Sorry, 20 crores. It is not shown as 10 crores, but you can accept it and then don't generate e-invoice, but on trial basis, you can generate and see the how to generate the e-invoice. So now we are going to see how to create the API user in the portal. Just a second. So this is the portal. Already we were discussing about the registration. So you go to the registration part, click on the portal login. If you already have enabled the portal login for e-way bill, then you need not do this process. Directly you can go to the login part. So click on the portal login, give your GST number, ensure that you have enabled the e-invoice first, then only this will work. Otherwise, this will not work. So provide the GST number, then provide the CAPTCHA. Once you provide the GST number and CAPTCHA, it will show you the details. So check your details. If your details are correct, then send OTP and verify your OTP. So one OTP will be received. So once you receive the OTP, you are going to enable this portal login. So this is your next step. Once you give your OTP, the screen will be created. You can create your username, your password, and re-enter password. Once again, if you have an e-way bill, that details also you can use it. No need to use this detail or create a new registration. So once you have created a login, now go to the login screen. So in the portal, you can see this login screen. Once you select on the login screen, it will ask you the login screen. See, totally 3 steps. One is enabling, second is creating a login, third thing is login to the portal. So first login is we are logging into portal first time. To log into the portal, provide the username, password, and the code, verification code. So this is your dashboard first time when you open the GST e-invoice portal. So here you can see how many e-invoices generated, how many canceled, all those data you can see. And then left hand side, you can see this API registration. So you click on this API registration. In this API registration, you will find this user credential. In the user credential, you have to select create a API user. So once you select on API user, a new screen, OTP will be sent. You have to provide the OTP. This window will be opened. Here you have to select through GSP. Here you have to select through GSP. And once you select through GSP, you have to select Tally solution. You can see this, select your GSP. So here scroll it and select the Tally solutions. So Tally India Private Limited. Create a API user ID and password. So once again, 2 user ID and password. One is for logging to the e-invoice portal. Second user ID and password. This user ID and password, what you are going to create is for the purpose of linking your Tally to the GST portal. So this API user ID password is required for linking Tally to the GST portal. So once you use this, you can use this login to directly access to the E-Invoice portal. Fine. So this is the step. Just a second. So till now we have seen how to create the API. So once you create an API, now next step is what? Next step is you are going to do the setup in the company. So your company is already existing company. It may be a migrated company from Tally ERP 9 or older version of Tally to the new Tally ERP 9, sorry, TallyPrime. The latest release is 2.1. So latest version you have to download and then use it. So you can go to feature or press F11 and then already your GST is enabled. Again, you go to the enabling part and then activate the E-Invoice option and provide the bill from details and applicable from details and the e-waybill options. And for importer and exporter, you have to provide a foreign currency details. So this we are going to see now how to do in the Tally part. So these are the steps involved. Why I am telling you the steps and taking is, see, it is in our mind that okay, this is the process. So it becomes easier when I show you in the live demo. So for the setup, I said F11, or you can go to the Alt K company option. In the company option, again, you have this feature option. You select the features. Once you select the feature or F11, you can see the screen, which you might have already been used for enabling GST. Now go to this enable goods and service tax and double click on this yes. So once you double click on this yes part, then what happens is the window of this GST gets opened. So here you can find that once this GST details, you provide these details are already provided for you. If you are using for first time, then provide these details, provide the GST number, state all those details, and then e-way bill applicable, yes, and then e-invoice applicable, yes. So once you provide this e-invoice applicable, it will ask you for further details, that is bill from place and the applicable from date. And then you can see this default report, what is available in the Tally. So this way you need to activate the e-invoice first. So only after this activation, your e-invoice will be enabled in the sales transaction. So default period, you can give 3 days, maximum 31 days. So whether you want to generate e-way bill and e-invoice together, that setup also you can do. And those who are exporters, additional step what they have to do is they have to create an additional currency. Go to create. Once you go to go to alter, go to the alter part and type currency. See the third option. So in that you create a new currency called dollar. Provide all those details, and then automatically your currency will be created, and that you can use for the purpose of this. This you can use for the purpose of generating your export invoice. Now the next step is how the e-invoice is generated. For the purpose of generating e-invoice, there are two methods already I have said. One is offline method, another one is online method. One is offline method and another one is offline method. First we are going to see how to do it for the online method. So online method means what? You complete the invoicing, press enter, automatically data is uploaded, e-way bill, e-invoice automatically generated. So normal voucher entry, F8 sales we are going to provide all the details. For the stock details, you have to ensure that you have the HSN code. In case of service provided the SAC code. And once you give yes, there will be a small box, generate the e-invoice, yes, and then automatically it will generate the e-invoice. You have to provide the API login details, and immediately you can see the print preview of the invoice. Immediately you can see the print preview of the invoice. We'll see the demo. So here we are going to go to the voucher entry. So in the voucher entry, this is normal sales entry which we are passing where stock we are having. So you provide the party name, provide the sales detail, provide the stock detail, we provide the rate, and then the tax amount. So all the details which are required for the invoice should be provided correctly. And here below you can see provide e-invoice detail. So here you have to give yes. So two methods, offline and online. Even in online, two methods are there. See, sometimes what happens is you provide the yes, but you want certain person to verify the detail, and then only it should be generated. That option is also available. For that, you need to do settings in +2, or directly if you want to generate the invoice, you can give yes. So here we have generated. You provide the bill to place, ship to place, all those details which are required for generating the e-invoice. And once you press enter, it will ask you for the user ID. It will ask you for the API user ID. It will ask you whether you want to generate the e-invoice. Give it as yes. Give the API user ID and password. Now, if this user ID and password you are giving and your tally is open, you need not give the user ID and password again and again for 6 hours. Provided the tally is not closed, this user and ID and password will work. Okay. So now the data is exchanging between the portal, and you can see that hardly within 5 to 6 seconds, the invoice is generated, and you can see here e-invoice generated successfully. Details are updated in the transaction. So once you see the preview of the invoice, you can find this invoice data, right? So this option is there in the tally to generate the e-invoice. And if you want to generate the invoice later on, say in case the approval process is there and you want to generate the invoice later on, that is salesperson will generate the invoice, then one control person will be there who will check and then he will generate. Then you can say send e-invoice details after saving voucher. You have to press F12 and give this option as yes. Then what will happen is the e-invoice data will be saved and it will show in the exported column. And you go to the exchange part. You can see this exchange part in this. So if you press this exchange, Z exchange, you will find all these invoices which are pending for approval. Once you select which invoice you want to generate e-invoice, you select this invoice, select send, and then automatically your e-invoice will be generated. So with this process, what will happen? Your e-invoice is generated online itself. Now, second step, I said that you can generate the e-invoice offline also. Now, once you pass the voucher entry, complete all the process, and then say generate e-invoice, you select no. Then what will happen is this data will again go to the exchange part. This data will go to the exchange part. There you select what are the vouchers you want to generate offline e-invoice. So select all these offline e-invoice, select the offline export, select the offline export, then this file will be exported to a JSON file. So this is for the online verification, not the offline part. Offline part I have not yet shown. Go to the e-invoice report, that is you can go to the go to part and then see the e-invoice report. So you can find here what is the report, how many e-invoices generated by the system, how many e-invoices cancelled, how many e-invoices rejected by the system. And once you go further, it will tell you the reason for rejection. So this way you can generate a e-invoice. See, generating a e-invoice in Tally is not a big task. Only thing is that your first two setup are very, very important. The first setup is what? First setup is the external setup. Second setup is the internal setup. So once you create an API, it becomes easier for you to generate this part, right? And the online method of invoice generation and offline method of invoice generation. So offline method, one demo I'll show you, and then we'll continue with the cancellation last part. So here offline method, in the offline method, this part already I have explained. You go to the Z exchange and then select offline. So once you select offline, it will export the file to the JSON file, whichever invoice you are selecting, and then you can see this export part will come. You generate it and then export to the JSON file. So once you select send, this will not go online, but it will go to your folder. So what is your folder path? You can configure in the Tally. So in this folder path, your file will be saved. This JSON file will be saved, and select send. So now what has happened is this JSON file, what is created, this will be saved in your folder. Next, what you need to do, this is an offline process. We have generated the JSON file. Now you log into the portal. So once you log into the portal, again, go to this E-Invoice option. In the E-Invoice option, there is an option for bulk upload. In the E-Invoice option, there is an option for bulk upload, and then you upload the data. So once you upload the data, this E-Invoice will be generated and one Excel file will be generated. So you upload this JSON file, then one E-Invoice is generated offline. You have to download this Excel file. Once you download this Excel file, this is the Excel file. You have your ARN number, but the QR code is not there. Only the IRN number, acknowledgement number, and date data is there. So since you have generated offline, you have to go to Tally, select the go to screen and type E-Invoice. Use the go to and type the E-Invoice report. In the E-Invoice report, you will find this exported option. Exported means these are all the invoice for which JSON file is generated and IRN is not updated. So select on this. Once you select on this data, these are all the invoice which is manually uploaded or uploaded in manually uploaded. Right hand side, you can see this manually update the IRN info. Manually update the IRN info. So once you select the manually update the IRN info, go to the Excel file, copy and paste the IRN number, copy and paste the acknowledgement number and the acknowledgement date. So once you provide all these data from the Excel file, your E-Invoice is generated, but QR code is not generated. So if you want to generate that QR code, what you have to do is you can go to this IRN generated option in the report, go to the QR code, open the QR code, see on the right hand side, you have this option, get IRN info. You have to select on this get IRN info. See, this preview will be without the QR code. So now go to the get IRN info. Your IRN info is generated. So here you can find the QR code is also generated. So this way you can generate the offline method of generating the QR code. And then the last part is cancellation. Already I have explained that within 24 hours you have to cancellation. Both option, offline and online options are available in Tally, where you can cancel. You have to go to the GST report, go to the E-Invoice, and then in the E-Invoice, you have those invoices where IRN is generated. In that, you need to select the invoices for which you need to cancel, and then press Alt-R to cancel the IRN. So if you want to cancel it, that is, you want to send it to the exchange data. So once you select cancel, what will happen is this will go to the exchange data, and then you select send, automatically it will go to the portal and cancel the data. And if you want to do the offline, same how we exported to the JSON file format and then uploaded to the E-Invoice portal, that method is applicable. So we see the demo. So how to cancel E-Invoice. So for canceling e-invoice, you have to go to the e-invoice report. So in the e-invoice report, select the e-invoice and you will get the report of what are all the IRN generated. You have to go to the IRN generated system. So once you go to the IRN generated from the e-invoice system, it will show you which are all the invoices for which IRN is generated. And if you want to cancel, right hand side you can see you have an option Alt R, cancel IRN. So once you select the invoice for which you have to cancel, select by spacebar and click on cancel IRN. So you have mark as cancellation. Now when you will use mark as cancellation is using some other method you have already cancelled in the portal and now you want to update in Tally, you can use it mark as cancellation. And you want to update cancellation online in Tally, then you have to select update cancellation. Then provide the reason for why you are cancelling. All those details you can provide for your future reference purpose so that this is recorded in your books of accounts. And then you have to select accept. Once you accept, what will happen is it is not cancelled immediately. This data will go to the exchange part, Alt Z. Now you press the Alt Z. So here you can see that pending for cancellation. To update that, you have to go to the this export part already I have covered. Send for e-invoice. So here you can see for cancellation. Select which and all invoice you want to cancel and upload in the e-invoice portal. Select it and then select send. So what will happen? Your e-invoice will be uploaded. If you want to generate offline uploading of cancellation, then offline export. So we'll see the online. So I've selected this, provided the user ID password. And then the data is updated. So this way you can provide the offline and online cancellation. So these are the steps for cancellation. So in the last reporting part, like how in GST we have this portal that which and all entry is wrong, right, all those parts are available. So overall in GST, one, turnover 10 crores from 1st October 2022. Second, aggregate turnover in any of the one preceding financial year. Third is that cancellation can be done only within 24 hours. Now last 10 minutes is there, so floor is open for question and answers. We'll take the question and answers. So this PPT, those who are registered, I'll share with Tally. They'll share the PPT so that you have a brief idea. See, in Tally, it is not much. Only the first and second part are important. The rest part is one time you understand, it is very easy. We have used practice league for raise invoice and accounting for GSTR filing of TallyPrime. How can we manage e-invoice process? See, now if you have used the practice, no problem. But as on 1st October, you have to go to the real-time basis. Automatically, it will be changed. A new company crosses 10 crore in the middle of the year. See, in any of the financial year, if the current year, if turnover crosses 10 crore, then e-invoice will be applicable only in the next year. Because when you see the next year, then the preceding financial year, 10 crore limit will be there seen. How to generate e-way bill online simultaneously after generating the e-invoice. See, when we have seen this feature screen, in the feature screen, we activate invoice, provide the details. In the last one option will be asked, do you want to generate e-invoice along with e-way bill? You can give yes. Then immediately Tally will enable e-invoice and e-way bill together. With e-invoice applicable, will all have to only update B2C details and relevant HSN summary. See, HSN summary you will get from Tally. So using that both for B2B and B2C, that you can update it. Yes, B2C details, B2C credit note, B2C debit note should be updated manually only. How to get the time of e-invoice on the offline utility? I need to check that. I have never used this offline utility, but I think when the e-invoice is downloaded, automatically it will show you with the time. So you can verify that. I have not used the offline utility, so I have to check. Only credit note e-invoice allowed and debit note e-invoice not allowed. Why? Did not get. Only credit note E-Invoice allowed, debit note E-Invoice not allowed. It will be allowed for B2B. If you are raising a debit note, you have to generate in E-Invoice only. You can write a query with the GST grievance cell, and then they will reply you. Some technical problem may be there. So e-way bill login, and yes, e-way bill login, if you have, same can be used for E-Invoice login, but you have to first enable it, then only you can use that login. If the password used in server in TallyPrime for raising E-Invoice, and the same will enable to the user or not. The password used in server in TallyPrime for raising E-Invoice. I did not get your question. See, whenever you are using Tally, in Tally, one Tally password will be there. For accessing your GST portal, one separate API password will be there. If you close Tally, if you have different users, and for them you want to provide the access level control, that control can be done. So that option is available, but for me, your question is not clear. What? Your sound is not clear.
Sir, I think we have covered Q&A. So people who have raised hands, we can ask them to ask the question directly.
Yeah.
So Mr. Mehul Shah, Garvit Nagar, Ehsan, Arshia Mujawar. Please do ask your question. I've given you permission to.
Yeah, okay. I have given permission to Garvit Nahar. What happened? I'm unable to.
No, sir, you are actually, even Andrew. Maybe they are not in front of the system or something. I think we have 2 more questions in Q&A.
In e-invoicing, in case e-invoice updated in the portal through other software and later can be retrieved, auto entry in Tally from portal to avoid entering each invoice in Tally again. E-invoice is entered or updated in a portal through other software. See, for that, maybe TDL might be available. At present, that option is not there, I think, that you can export it from the e-invoice, import it to the Tally, but surely TDL can be done. You have to get in touch with some TDL coordinator. So from what time the 24 hours of cancellation of e-invoice will be applicable? Example, I made an invoice at 5, uploaded the bill at 6. So yeah, see, time of 24 hours is when, not the time when you create in Tally. It is a time when the acknowledgement number is generated. So that is the time which you have to take into effect. When you created the JSON file, you upload it after 6 hours. After 6 hours only, when the acknowledgement time is there, that time 24 hours should be calculated. From 19th May, I have registered for e-invoice from April. I have to generate April month also, whether it is for 20 crores or 10 crores. So if it 20 crores, you can try. If the system is allowing backdated, you update the e-invoice. Yes, if for 20 crores, I have seen even cases where people more than 20 crores have not registered for e-invoice. So their challenges are there. You have to try, go to the portal and check whether you are able to pass the, because certain leverage to certain time is given in the e-invoice portal where you can update your backlogs. So those backlog work you can try, and then you can try to update it. I was not able to e-invoice the debit note. Tally executive assisted as that the supplier, we can raise the credit note e-invoice only for the debit note. We have to request the supplier. No. Debit note, credit note is only what it is issued by the supplier, not by the recipient, right? So we are able to invoice tax invoice credit note, but not this. I will check with the Tally software what issue they are having. I was not aware of this. I'll check with them. Normally in service industry, hours etc. with SAC code is to be given with hourly rate, which till now can done on Excel. Now on, for generating e-invoice, we will be required to enter this info in Tally. See, hours details and all is not required for the service invoice. Maybe for your reference purpose, if you want to provide in Tally, you can use the option provide description for ledger and provide the details. But for e-invoice purpose, rate, quantity is required only when goods are supplied. For services, HS and SAC code is enough.
I think we have no further question. Mr. Mehul Shah, Mr. Garvit Nagar, I've given you permission. If you still have a query, please do unmute yourself.
You Can they unmute? I'm unable to.
Yeah, they can unmute. I've already.
1 minute.
Maybe, sir, they're not in front of the system or have their queries answered. I'll
Maybe
just
right,
lower
no
their
problem.
hand.
So I think the time is also 4:30. Last two questions we'll take and then we'll stop.
Yeah.
And filing of TallyPrime, how can we manage e-invoice? I did not get, we have used practice leak for raising the invoice and GSTR filing for TallyPrime. How do we manage e-invoice process? I am unable to understand this question of practice leak.
Mr. Anil Kumar, I've given you permission to talk. You can ask your question directly to
Invoice
Vinodh.
value rupees 10,000 e-way bill. See, e-way bill, there's a rule. E-way bill is required if the value including tax is more than 50,000 in case of interstate supply. And some states 50,000 and some states 1 lakh for intrastate supply.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Tell me.
सर हम लोग दो सॉफ्टवेयर यूज कर रहे हैं. एक तो प्रैक्टिस लीक कर रहे हैं यूज जहाँ से हमारे इनवॉइस रेज होते हैं.
ओके.
और टैली प्राइम के अंदर हम उसकी बुक कीपिंग कर रहे हैं.
अच्छा, तो आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? यू
अच्छा.
हैव, आपको ई इनवॉइस किसमें जनरेट करना है? प्रैक्टिस लीक में करना है कि टैली प्राइम में करना है?
सर प्रैक्टिस लीक में करना है.
तो प्रैक्टिस लीक वालों को पूछना पड़ेगा ना.
बट सर अगर हम उसको जैसे GSTR1 अभी ऑटो पॉपुलेट होके टैली प्राइम के थ्रू जा रहा है, तो वहीं से सारे इनवॉइस इसमें आए टैली प्राइम में, वो कैसे मतलब मैनेज
अगर
होगा?
प्रैक्टिस लीग में आप इनवॉइस जनरेट कर रहे हैं, अगर उसमें वो ई इनवॉइस को ऑप्शन नहीं दे रहे हैं, मे बी यू हैव टू आस्क प्रैक्टिस इनवॉइस टू गिव अ एक्सपोर्ट फाइल जो आप आकर टैली प्राइम में इंपोर्ट करके फिर वहां से ई इनवॉइस जनरेट कर सकते हैं.
ओके.
दैट इज द ओनली ऑप्शन अवेलेबल.
ओके 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 सर.
या.
थैंक यू सर.
थैंक यू. One more person was raised and fine.
Nahin, Vinodh sir, I think all the questions are
Thank you
answered.
all for your wonderful participation, and thank you Tally for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vinodh sir. I think the session was very interactive. We had to keep the track of all the questions. So definitely we have completed within time and we've answered all the questions. So that's a achievement. So thank you so much, Vinodh sir. I think, okay. So I will just end the session for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.